Welcome to the I Hate Critics movie review podcast. I'm professional film critic Sean Patrick. With me is Jeff.
Howdy.
We're in the same place at the same time.
Yes, we are recording this together.
This is so weird.
It is very weird.
Whatever will Zoom do without us?
Well, hopefully Zoom can chill for a little bit because,
Yes.
you know, having not actually having the professional version of it.
We don't have to pause for 10 minutes to
Yes.
start a new one.
We can go off on a tangent and not have to, like, wait.
Yeah. And they won't own a portion of this podcast because it's not on their platform.
This is true. This is true.
I don't know if you know that, but like, yeah, Zoom apparently can claim like your stuff and say, hey, we're going to use that to test out some AI. And
Well, it looks like we're going to be doing a lot of in-person podcasting.
Now that we live in the same place. I live 5 minutes away from you now.
Mm-hmm.
Should be a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's going to be weird though when you're like constantly knocking on my window. Can we do a podcast? I just saw a movie.
So you don't want to watch Caligula tomorrow then?
No,
Okay.
I definitely do not want to.
Fair enough. I'm watching Caligula this week for an assignment and not particularly looking forward to it. But
When I was a kid, we had an uncle who had a bunch of like Penthouse magazines, and because Bob Guccione, he was the one who made the movie, it was always in Penthouse magazine. So I always wanted to see it. And then one of my friends had a videotape of it, and it was the R-rated version, and it was fucking boring.
Mm.
And Malcolm McDowell, I can't believe he ever worked again. From my recollection, like 30 years ago.
Yeah, we talked about Maxine and like her, allegedly having harmed an extra in
Wearing my Maxine shirt.
Very nice. Her having harmed an extra and how maybe that was some kind of like publicity stunt because it so fits the story of the movie. I do wonder, like, whatever happened to the guy who Malcolm McDowell stuck a flower right in his anus. And that's why I wonder if Malcolm McDowell ever worked again.
You know what though? Like,
that was an ad lib. He ad libbed that. But
see, I wonder about that because it's hard to get stuff in there.
I don't know.
If you try to...
You slide it between the cheeks, I get it, but like that...
Yeah, I mean, if you randomly stuck something in somebody's butthole and it was a flower that, I mean, let's face it, a flower is fragile. Anyway, the stem is still fragile. If you try to stick that in somebody's butthole without a lot of lube, unless it was like a rosebud, I don't know.
I have no idea.
So,
this could be just something that someone made up on the internet. Although I do recall there being a scene in the movie where he does that.
Yeah.
And it does stand there.
So maybe he lubed it up first. Maybe it wasn't an ad lib. Maybe it was, let's do this and not tell Bob.
Maybe the ad lib is the part where everybody made up the story.
That could be it. Yeah. Good luck with that. I'm not going to watch that.
Oh, man, apparently O'Toole's just so drunk the entire time. He's in makeup, right? To look like he does, but how much? They didn't really need much makeup.
No, he was functionally an alcoholic the last 20 years of his life, wasn't he?
So apparently that's more alcohol than man.
Yeah. We know a few of those.
Family.
I'm not a drunk.
So the box office this week, Deadpool and Wolverine remaining number one. But wow, I mean, Colleen Hoover fans showing out.
I sat in a theater that was almost as full as when I saw Deadpool and Wolverine, the first showing. That's how many people went to see this movie here. I mean, good for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's counter programming, I guess. I don't know, but
right. Apparently, this is the first time this has happened in modern box office history where a husband and wife have the number one and number two movie in the country.
I mean, I can't think of anybody else that would.
I think the last time was Bruce Willis and Demi Moore, I think back in 1990.
Okay.
At least somebody told me that just this morning, actually.
Huh. Was that Carnival movie with her? And I don't know.
Couldn't be.
Mortal Thoughts?
It can't be for sure. It was 1990.
Remember when I said this was my premiere magazine time?
Yeah.
I want to say Mortal Thoughts was probably it because that seems like it would be around that time.
Makes sense. But yeah, that's an interesting little anecdote.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Borderlands is going to lose a whole lot of money.
And I should say, she's in both of the number 1 and number 2 movies because she was the voice of Lady Deadpool.
Yeah. Wow, Blake Lively having a moment.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
Borderlands did not have a moment. It failed miserably. It cost over $100 million to make. It made $9 million on its opening weekend, and they're going to be begging China to go see this movie.
Wow. Well, they didn't get my $8.50 or however much a matinee is because I read some reviews before.
Mm-hmm.
And I told you last week I will see 2 of the movies, and I meant to see Borderlands was going to be one of them,
mm-hmm.
and Cuckoo was going to be the other. I read a couple reviews, not even yours, and I was like, no, if this person is telling me that they walked out of it, I am definitely not going to go.
So I was talking with the managers at our local theater as I was going in to see Borderlands, and I was telling them that it had somehow it has a 3 on Rotten Tomatoes. So there were critics who were like, this is pretty good somehow. But as I'm doing this, I'm walking down the hallway and I'm saying goodbye to the managers, and this guy stops me as I'm walking toward the theater. He stops me and goes, "It's so bad, man. It's so bad. It's the worst movie I've ever seen."
Even worse than Hex?
This person, I have no idea who he is, but he was eager to tell me just how bad this movie was. And I walked in kind of excited, actually. I was hoping that it would actually be bad in a way that would be memorable.
But if you ask Jamie Lee Curtis, it's a goddamn movie experience. And I have said this before, and I said it when we talked about Halloween Ends. If you ever put Jamie Lee Curtis in a movie, she is going to talk that movie up like nobody else. Even if she knows it's a piece of shit like Borderlands or Halloween Ends, she's going to completely suck that movie's dick in front of everybody.
Yeah, well, she famously didn't want to be in one of the Halloween movies that she was in, and still was putting it over in the media.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she's a star. She is a cheerleader no matter what, which even this movie, she was a cheerleader for. And I don't think I'll ever even watch this streaming.
Really?
It's just.
And haven't you seen every one of her movies?
Well, up until recently, no. I saw Road Games recently with her and Stacy Keach. And I saw it because I think it's on Tubi or somewhere free.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen that one. Fun fact, one of the reasons that I was going to blind buy it just so I could have the cover that Scream Factory put out, because they had somebody paint the cover like they do. And her arm looks like if she put it down, because she's a hitchhiker. If she put it down, it would have stretched to her ankle. That's how badly this person painted her arm. But I think it was last summer that I saw that movie for the first time. And I guess I'll have to look and see if there's anything I've missed of hers, but I don't know.
Gonna miss this one then.
Probably.
Borderlands is directed by Eli Roth and stars Jamie Lee Curtis along with Cate Blanchett, who plays a bounty hunter in the movie, who plays by her own rules, because we never see characters like that.
What?
In movies.
A bounty hunter playing by their own rules?
I know.
Boba Fett would never. Dengar would never. Bosk, maybe.
So the daughter of a wealthy industrialist named Atlas, which is weird. There are 2 movies that have characters named Atlas on the same weekend.
One is hot.
Edgar Ramirez, who is just picking up paycheck after paycheck, playing any bad guy that'll hire him, any bad guy role. I think this is 5 in a row for him, where he's played just generic bad guy number 1.
I'm trying to think of the last movie I saw him in.
He was like I think he was the bad guy in that Rock Emily Blunt movie. He was like the bad guy in Point Break. He was the bad guy. So many times he's been the just generic bad guy number one.
Jungle Cruise?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I think that was him. Again, I could be mixing that up with a dozen different movies because that movie is just as generic. But he hires Cate Blanchett to go find his daughter, and his daughter's been taken to this planet where just happens to be Cate Blanchett's home planet.
Pandora. Do they run into any of the Na'vi?
No. It is. Yeah, it is weird. I don't know why I guess the game is called Borderlands, so you have to call it that. But no one ever says the word Borderlands in the entire movie, so it really doesn't. It's kind of a nonsensical title.
I mean, you could even just say, "Oh, we're coming up on the Borderlands," you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do I know?
So it turns out that Kevin Hart, who works for the bad guy Atlas, has turned into a good guy and stolen his daughter and taken her to this planet because the bad guy wants to use the daughter as a key to open up this ancient vault that has, the MacGuffin inside of it. I know, we've never seen a plot like this ever before.
God, this is...
the only way to open the vault is to have a daughter of the planet open it. So you have to actually be from the planet. The daughter was genetically made to be from the planet using blood from someone. It's Cate Blanchett. I mean, come on. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out she's going to be the one.
This sounds horrifying.
It's really, I mean, here's the thing though. It's like, this is a terrible movie, but it's not terrible in any way that's very interesting. I don't think Eli Roth is a very good director, but this movie is coherent. It is on the screen. It is happening in sequence. He's not making, and like M. Night Shyamalan did all those weird close-ups and Trap. He's not doing anything weird with the camera. He's really not doing anything interesting with it at all, other than capturing directly what's in front of it. The special effects aren't great, but they're not so noticeably bad that they're worse than any other special effects. So I don't. It's bad but not in a very interesting way.
One of my friends who told me not to see this, who said that they walked out, this is their favorite video game of all time.
Yeah, I have no connection to the game.
I don't play video games except Words with Friends, if you consider that. According to one of my coworkers, oh, you're a gamer if you play that. I'm like, okay, then I'm a gamer, whatever that,
Look out for your Words with Friends Twitch stream then.
Right? Can't think of anything less exciting except maybe watching this movie. Yeah, and he's just like, he goes, didn't have really the spirit of it. It didn't have, any of the excitement of it. So
it's not funny. And Kevin Hart's trying. So Kevin Hart plays a mercenary character. He's like a army specialist. He's like a Navy SEAL kind of guy. Not that they have Navy SEALs in this movie, but I'm telling you, that's the level of fighting competence he's supposed to have. And so to play this character, he decides to play this character without being funny in any way. He makes no attempt to be funny. There are no attempts at one-liners. He is playing this character as straight as possible, and thus no one is making any jokes in the entire movie. Now, it all feels lighthearted. The tone is relatively light because it's very colorful. It's like, it's all, bright oranges, bright blues, bright everything. It's a very bright movie.
Well, we said it looks like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, so...
And that's the thing. It's also just boringly derivative of Guardians, Star Wars, anything that has multiple planets in the universe to use. It's derivative of that. So it's not a very original thing. Jack Black plays a robot who maybe kind of does funny things if you find that funny. I didn't really laugh, but there's like a moment where like he and Cate Blanchett have kind of a love-hate relationship, or a hate-hate relationship, I guess. But he's assigned to her, like he's her robot from her childhood. And when she seemingly dies, he like starts dancing and celebrating, and that was kind of funny. Kind of. But
you thought the movie was over, and you're like, "Yay!"
It made me laugh because I knew she wasn't dead, and he didn't. Yeah. It's the only kind of funny thing in the entire movie, but it's only like, that's. Then you go back to this waiting for the movie to be over. I wasn't miserable. That's the thing. Like, a lot of people are talking about this as a miserable experience. Like, this is the worst movie of the year. It's not. It doesn't. No. It's not interesting enough to be there. Trap is a far more interesting bad movie that I enjoy talking about.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just, it happened and it's not good.
Yeah. Like I said, Trap will be one of those ones I watch just kind of ironically when it's streaming, but I won't buy it. This doesn't even sound interesting to watch, unironically or ironically.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that The House with a Clock in Its Walls that Eli Roth did a few years ago. Is a similar kind of very there kind of movie.
his gateway horror for kids.
Yeah,
that's what he calls it.
It's a movie that happened, and it's not completely awful.
Eli Roth seems like somebody I would love to just hang out with and talk about horror movies. Thanksgiving was great. I love that movie so much. But you're right. He's not like, he's a better looking Zack Snyder where he's an interesting guy, but I don't necessarily want to see what he's,
Yeah. He's enthusiastic.
Yeah.
That's about the nicest thing I can say.
He loves movies.
Yeah.
He's like a less jaded Quentin Tarantino when it comes to talking about movies. His History of Horror series, I don't know if you ever listened or saw that. Great. He talks about some really good movies, it has some really deep cuts. But most of his movies are just, The Green Inferno, when he remade Cannibal Apocalypse or Cannibal Holocaust, that was fine, but nothing
watered down by the studio.
Yeah. He just seems like somebody I'd love to get to know and be friends with, but not necessarily sit through his movies and have to talk to him about those.
Yeah.
So,
did you like the Hostel movies? I fucking hate Hostel. I think
I like the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, once Heather Matarazzo died, I was hoping she was going to be the one who.
Yeah, her death was like, I wanted to walk out.
Yeah.
It was just needless.
Yeah.
It was just needless cruelty. And that's really where I think he gets off on needless cruelty, honestly.
Him and Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
The Halloween remake, when Daniel Harris is laying in the vestibule screaming and just screaming and screaming and screaming. I'm like, I don't think he likes any woman that's not his wife. So
yeah, he doesn't have a very good opinion of women.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it the way he writes them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lead of the Halloween movies, whatever her name was, she's just the most
Taylor Tom.
She's just the most unlikable human being on the planet, and that's your lead actor that he
But you know what?
wrote.
Here's the thing, though. She in person is great. Everybody loves her. She's so much fun at conventions. I've got a mutual on Instagram who every time he goes to a convention, she hooks up with Daniel Harris and they do, photo ops and stuff together. He just can't stop talking about how great she is. So she must be a good actress because her Laurie Strode made me want to murder her myself.
Miserable.
Just everything about Rob Zombie's Halloween movies was just horrifying for me, and not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the like, oh my God, I can't believe that. I would rather watch the new Halloween trilogy than 15 minutes of either one of his.
Yeah.
So
it's funny too to think, and not to linger on this, but Borderlands is so uninteresting that we're going to linger on this. Is that I think there's an interesting approach to filmmaking. Like I don't like Rob Zombie's music, but I like that he seems to like he appears like he likes prog rock, and he wants to do a big prog rock version of a horror movie.
Yeah.
He just shouldn't have made a Halloween movie then. He should have made a prog rock horror movie if that's what he wanted to do, with all of his horse imagery and all of the, the Jesus stuff that he's doing. Like, all that could have gone on a pretty, fun kind of prog rock horror movie. It doesn't belong in Halloween.
Yeah. See, I'm not a fan of his movies, period.
Yeah, he sucks.
It's the griminess of them, I like some pretty fucked up shit when it comes to horror movies, but there's a certain depravity to his stuff that just turns me off.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll ever be a fan of his. Unless he came and did something really, really good. I didn't even bother with the Munsters.
No one did.
True.
Every time it comes to like a Rob Zombie movie or an Eli Roth movie or whoever it was that made Wolf Creek, that piece of trash, I turn into Roger Ebert from the early 80s. Just like, I go in like, you're trying to destroy society. Like, you're a bad person and your movie is bad.
Did you put Sherry Moon Zombie's telephone number in your review? Like
No, I did not. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Betsy Palmer. He got it, or her address, or
oh yeah, okay, now I remember.
Yeah, and he got it wrong, so her neighbor kept getting all sorts of hate mail. But yeah, put Sherry Moon Zombie's phone number or something in there. Dox her, I don't care.
Yeah, so it's those are generally unpleasant. Borderlands, on the other hand, I mean, it's as soon as this podcast is done, that movie's going to be absent from my brain. I don't think it deserves all the hate that it's getting. It's not nearly as bad as that. I think people who like the game are saying that. And if that's your opinion, if you like the game, I understand. You're not judging the movie, you're judging the lack of what you want from the game. This movie is bad, but it's not the worst movie of the year. It's just bad in the least interesting way.
Will it be on your top 10 worst?
Probably. Maybe. I mean, maybe. I'm not going to say no. Because, I mean, honestly, the worst movies so far this year aren't really rushing to mind like they usually do. Like, the only one that comes to mind immediately is Trap. And that's more of a recency thing.
Yeah. I can think
I'm sure I've seen something worse this year.
But. I mean, I'm at this point in the year, I have my favorite, and I can't see anything that's coming out dethroning that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my 10 best, but I don't think I could think of 10 worst. And my 10 best might be all horror this year just because we've done so well, but
I think I've been watching a lot of old Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel at the movies, and I think what we're going to do for our bad movies this year is just rob their concept from the 80s. And they had these categories of bad movies where they were talked about movies they didn't like, but like a big star in a disappointing movie, that kind of thing. You come up with little categories, and then you take movies that you didn't love and you put them in those categories.
Like yearbook superlatives?
Kind of, yeah.
I got most unique walk. Whatever the fuck that means.
It's for your little sachet.
Well, no, it's because I have short legs and a long torso. So
they were calling you gay without calling you gay. I'm sorry to tell you.
Oh no, they straight up said I got called faggot more times than my first name in junior high, and probably my freshman year of high school. But after my sophomore year, it was pretty cool because my biggest bully, I don't know if he even graduated or he quit, but yeah.
Fun stuff.
When I read his obituary a few years ago, I read it with great zeal.
Let's talk about another new movie this week. Let's talk about It Ends With Us, based on the novel by Colleen Hoover and starring Blake Lively as, what is her name?
Lily Bloom.
Lily Blossom
Bloom. Jesus.
The owner of a flower shop.
Jesus Christ.
Blake Lively, star of this film, right at the start of the movie, her dad dies. It's a very conflicted relationship because she has a traumatic memory of her father being abusive towards her mother and also towards her then childhood boyfriend, a homeless kid who lived in the abandoned house next to her, who she comes to take care of as first a friend, and then they become boyfriend and girlfriend. And it's a very meaningful relationship. That's Atlas in the movie. And I gotta say, the kids that they hired to play the young Blake Lively and the young Brandon Sklenald, incredible.
He is my favorite performance in this movie.
The kid?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he nailed everything.
And the girl, I thought they somehow figured out de-aging technology.
He looked just enough like her that it was like...
If this evolved into that, it would make perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like Jake Lloyd to Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
It was... Yeah, it was definitely...
There's going to be a casting Oscar in the future, as I understand it. And this person, whoever did this, whoever found this, Oscar.
It's the level
that good.
It is the level of A League of Their Own, where they hired a completely different actress to play Gina Davis, to the point where people still think that was Gina Davis in old age makeup, and it was not. It was an actual separate actor.
That's insane. I don't believe it.
It's that good. It is that. I mean, the casting is that good.
Yeah, it is that good. So she's of course got this in her background. She's she's moved to Boston. She's hanging out on this rooftop for some reason, and she meets a handsome doctor, a neurosurgeon, played by the director of the movie, Justin Baldoni, who she meets. He's just having this like fucking wah cry fit over something, and we don't know what it is, kicking a chair and whatnot. And then they flirt and they banter and they almost have sex, and then he gets called away to surgery. And she thinks that maybe she'll never see him again, because we know it's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
She opens a flower shop, and his sister just happens to come work there. Jenny Slate in a performance that is just utterly baffling. Why would you give this performance? Why would you create these characters in this movie? Her and Hassan Minaj she is playing her character from Parks and Recreation for some reason, who's just a hilarious character on that show.
He's a sequined caricature,
but but just not appropriate for this material. And then Hassan Minaj is basically like riffing a crypto bro for some reason, a day trader / crypto bro, and trying to work that in places to be funny, I guess. And because the rest of the movie isn't funny, obviously.
This is not a fun romp.
No. So this all feels just completely like they're from a different fucking movie. Which is a testament to how incredible Blake Lively is in this movie. She pulls it back for me. Yeah. I did come around, and she gets into this relationship with him. It turns out to be abusive. The movie kind of plays with that idea, and it's very bold. It's very controversial. It's kind of clumsy how they do it, where they couch it initially as from her perspective, trying to justify it all. Her memory, she's seemingly unreliable.
She even says that. I'm an unreliable narrator. She says that in the dialogue of the movie, which is a little ham-handed. But then you find out...
The movie's incredibly blunt. Yeah. But she tries to play off the initial things as being accidents. He burns his hand and he swings around and he smacks her in the face. Does it... He pushed her down the stairs, but she thinks she just slipped and fell. She's trying to tell herself these things, but she'll come to realize, of course, that these things are actually him being actively abusive toward her. And that's kind of her journey through the rest of the movie. But that is some clumsy way of doing things. The editing is very, it's a little bit, but it does, in its way, I think there's value in this movie. I watched this as well in a crowded theater. And there were a lot of young teenage boys who were running around. And I think they did seemingly, but there wasn't anybody who was, actively disrespectful. Like they weren't on their phones. They weren't talking the whole time. If they actually got the blunt message from this, that it's, bad to be an abuser, and one of them ends up thinking about that and not abusing someone, maybe there's something there. It's very blunt. And sometimes maybe we do have to say as a society, hey, being an abuser is a bad thing.
Yeah, right.
I know that should just be something we all know. And there are great, great examples of movies that do this without being so very, very blunt. But there is something about a blunt object in this case, and in our modern society where we have an abuser running for president currently, I think it's valuable to have a movie that is very blunt in saying being an abuser is wrong.
Yeah. And I like the message that for a change, you're not going to get away with it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we see what's going on now. This guy gets away with literally everything he does, no matter how illegal it is. And you think in this movie that after we're spoiling it because nobody who's going to see this movie hasn't already seen this movie. Like the first time. She finds out after she leaves him that she's pregnant, and there's a lot of will she or won't she have the baby, and she does. And there's a little montage of her being pregnant, and she gives birth, and he comes in at the last minute, her husband, her abusive husband, and holds her hand and is there with her, and loves her. You can tell the guy loves her, but he is abusive.
Yeah.
And that's the confliction that I had watching it, because I was like, is he going to change? Well, he might, but she's not going to give him that chance.
Yeah.
And Jenny Slate, being blunt, says, if you leave him, I will never speak, or if you don't leave him, I will never speak to you again.
Yeah.
He's my brother. I love him. He went through this traumatic thing when he was a kid, which mirrors exactly when we first meet him, that he,
right. He tells the story. Yeah.
Yeah. He tells the story, and you find out later that it's exactly the same stories when he was a kid. I went to the bathroom, and I might have missed him talking about having a brother, but to me, it was just dropped in this conversation where Blake Lively asks Jenny Slate, tell me about your brother Emerson. Oh, you had a brother? It was just, it seemingly dropped to me. I don't know. Somebody,
there was a brief conversation in the restaurant at one point.
Okay. That's exactly when I went up to go to the bathroom.
So we haven't mentioned this, but Atlas is in town as well. And this is not in the book, apparently. I've never read the book. But I'm told that this part about Atlas owning a restaurant in Boston and actually interacting with her as an adult is not in the book. She does meet him again at the very end of the book. But the interactions that they have in this movie, where she goes to his restaurant, Root in Boston, and this sort of starts the triggering of the abuse by her boyfriend, seeing her with him again, because she's told him the story, and she has this tattoo that is based off of something that he created. So that's all a big trigger for Justin Baldoni's character. Not that there's any excuse. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
That's what sets him off and gets him being jealous and insecure. And I do think there's value in the blunt ways that they're doing things. Not all abuse, though, is going to have this level of obvious reasoning. Like,
yeah,
a lot of
it's not sleeping with the enemy.
Yeah.
I mean.
And credit to this movie, it's not easy to make this movie without it turning into something like that.
Yeah.
Like every other abuse movie from the 80s and 90s and even in the early 2000s, where it's like the guy has to die at the end. That's the only way any woman can survive in those movies, is if the ex is dead. He's got to be dead. Otherwise, he's coming back like fucking Jason.
Right. I mean, if they want to do that, just call it Goodbye Earl and do it. I appreciated the fact that, it's messy, that it's not cut and dried. We see what the cut and dried would have been later in the movie when she's reflecting back, whether she wants to keep him or not.
Yeah.
The level in which I was like, well, when he grabbed the hot pan, it was an accident. And she, she's like, oh no, but he seems so apologetic. But then later on, he's still apologetic, but you see what actually happened. He was mad and hit her.
Yeah.
He threw her down the stair, all this stuff. And you're just like, oh, okay. there's three sides to every story, and we saw, hers twice, but in different iterations. And I generally didn't dislike this movie like I thought I was going to.
Mhm.
Just because, my sister and my nieces, they all read Colleen Hoover and they all know every movie.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it, I think, more because of the characterizations. Part of me, when I see, directed and starring, always gives me a little bit of pause, but I didn't even realize I'd seen Justin Baldoni and stuff before.
Yeah.
I just thought, that this might be like a narcissism thing, but he was actually really good to the point where I was on his side a lot. And the chemistry that he and Blake Lively had really it wasn't forced.
Mhm.
Like a lot of these kind of movies where they're trying to set up a great love story.
Right.
I really truly believed that they did care for each other. Even in the end, when she said, which I laughed out loud and nobody else did, when she has the baby, they're sitting there and he's like, oh, I love you so much. And she just looks at him and goes, I want a divorce. I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And nobody else did. And I was kind of embarrassed about it. But the fact that he kind of accepted that shows that he knew he was in the wrong.
Mhm.
And maybe there's a chance that he will change for the next woman.
Yeah.
So
if you want a better version of this, you need to watch the movie Waitress with Kerry Russell, Nathan Fillion, and just an unbelievably incredible performance by what is it? Now, of course, I tried to give myself a second to find his name, and oh God, Jeremy Sisto.
Yeah.
He's incredible. That is the most frightening version of this character I've ever seen. He's so unpredictable. You don't know what's going to set him off. He is constantly a terrible person throughout the movie, and you get a sense of what happened to get them into this situation to make him so terrible. Like, not all of it. It's all implied by his performance. And it's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. And it does have the same kind of ending with her, telling him, like, she's literally had the baby and telling him, I want a divorce. And it's her kind of realizing that she can be on her own for the first time.
Yeah.
That's a better version of this. But this movie, for what I thought, again, I thought it wouldn't be as good. I was kind of putting it in that sort of Twilight 50 Shades kind of area. Because it is kind of, Colleen Hoover does kind of have that kind of product vibe where I believe she's written this story from both perspectives.
Yeah.
Which is just such a commercial,
Right. Yeah. And
kind of ugly thing.
I read a lot. I listen to a lot of books, and I've resisted her stuff because, my sister's got a bookshelf full of her books, and I'm like, when did she start writing? Is she just appeared one day and had written 5,000 books. And I'm like, is she Stephen King? Has she been around for 40 years? No, she hasn't. So, there is that, like you said, that product feel to a lot of her stuff.
Doesn't feel organic.
But
she does appear to have good intentions.
Yes. And from everything I've heard from the people who have read her books, that she's very good, and she does have a style.
This doesn't feel like she's exploiting domestic violence.
No.
I don't feel that way at all. I think that she's very, at least based on what's in this movie, it appears very respectful of a situation where a woman wants to love a man, has loved him for a period of time, and is coming to terms with no longer being able to love him.
Right. And I think too that the way she tells the story kind of won me over, because there was a point towards the beginning of the movie where, Blake Lively dresses like this bohemian chic, and it just kind of kept taking me out of the movie. Your name is Lily Blossom Bloom, and you dress like a bohemian, and of course you're going to open a flower shop, and it's a little annoying.
Yeah.
That you're just a free spirit. But then everybody won me over. You know, I still, towards the end, I was like, oh my God, put on a fucking regular shirt and stop wearing it off your shoulders. Come on. But that, my preconceived notions were kind of dispelled.
Mm-hmm.
Probably about like by halfway through the movie, I was kind of into it and watching it and okay, you know, I do kind of like this.
I give Blake Lively a lot of credit for this. I think that performance holds a lot of this together. I think without that center, without her holding it together, I don't know if this movie works nearly as well as it wants to.
She's actually, I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, she's Blake Lively. She's just kind of a star. But then I remembered, like, she's actually a really good actress. And A Simple Favor.
Very good movie.
Great movie. Love that movie. And she's the reason I love it so much. Anna Kendrick kind of grates on me. But Blake Lively, I'm like, I was thinking about that movie while I was watching this. I was like, you know what? She actually is pretty good and stuff. She's not just a star, you know. She's not just Mrs. Ryan Reynolds. So
I like her in The Shallows. That's a shark movie. It's just her and the shark.
Yep.
And I kind of like it just because she's good, not just because she's in a bikini. And it's not a man thing necessarily. She's incredibly attractive. I just like that movie. I liked her performance, and it was kind of silly, but also kind of exciting.
One of the best dollars I've ever spent was on that DVD. Because I was like, it's $1. How bad could it be? You know, for $1. And then I watched it. I was like, oh, I was going to just donate it. I kept it. I still have the DVD because it was pretty good. Or I was actually Blu-ray for $1. I was like, oh yeah, I'll keep this one. I'll watch this again when I do Shark Week.
So we are recommending It Ends With Us.
Yeah.
So I think we're both kind of surprised by that.
Well, like I said, I was going to see 2 movies this week. Because I can usually afford to see no more than 2. I was going to see Cuckoo, and I was going to see Borderlands, and I was going to let this one go to streaming. And after hearing so terrible reviews of Borderlands, I decided to see this instead. And I'm really glad I did.
So our last new movie is called Cuckoo, and it stars Hunter Schafer and is directed by Tilman Singer. It tells the story of a teenager who's being forced to live with her dad, Martin Kasakis, and his new wife, Jessica Henwick. They already have a daughter named Alma, who's, is she mute? She's
8 years old, nonverbal.
Nonverbal, yeah. And there's a great deal of antagonism. Hunter Schafer really doesn't want to be here. They're moving to the Alps, for fuck's sake.
She has to be because her mother, who she was living with, has just died.
Right. We don't know that right away.
Yeah.
But you figure it out eventually. But after a very sweet scene that I was really moved by. And they move in and they've got this new boss, and Dan Stevens playing a man with a very thick German accent and pulling it off. I was, kind of impressed by how he's I don't think he is genuinely German, but it's not such a parody. It feels just organic to this character.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm not saying he's a great, authentic German. I'm saying that he is, for this character, it feels right.
Right. Fair enough.
She comes to find that you're not supposed to go out after dark in this town, but Hunter Schafer wants to. She just wants to ride her bike home from this new job she has at the hotel. She then is attacked by something, a woman, apparently. What kind of woman it is, we'll find out eventually, but fucking hell, terrifying looking. Great look. Mm-hmm. And fucking scary and genuinely strangely dangerous. Women have been sort of disappearing in this area for some reason. We come to find that out. Specifically, the wife of a former police detective who is now in town trying to figure out what happened to his wife. And the story will unfold involving the cuckoo bird. And, well, that's, if you know anything about them, I guess you might know a little bit about this movie, apparently.
Yeah, a cuckoo lets other birds raise its offspring. That's the conceit of the novel that this was based on. Hunter Schafer we talked about her with Kinds of Kindness. wishing she had been in every one of those vignettes.
Yep.
She has got such a screen presence, and she is the star of this movie, and the abuse that she suffers in this movie is just stultifying. I'm like, oh my, like if it's just every time she's on screen, she's got a new injury, and she just plays it with this kind of resignedness, towards the end. She's just like, oh God, for fuck's sake, she's just, she's been through it. And I was trying to think of like if an elevator pitch for this movie, and I kind of settled on the quote unquote monster of the movie looks like if Candy Darling from the Andy Warhol movies made a mask of her face and then wore it over her own face. And then was directed by Brandon Cronenberg in an Andy Warhol movie.
Wow. Yeah.
It's just, it's so off-putting. And it's not like there are scenes where this creature thing, her face distends, and that's less disturbing. You don't see that. It's like a split second, but that's less disturbing than when you see her in close up and it's just off. It looks like somebody's wearing a mask of their own face. And this movie is cuckoo. I mean, for lack of a better term, it's Dan Stevens is eating up all the scenery. I'm not like, everybody's like, oh my God, Dan Stevens. I'm like, okay, he's fine. But in this movie, he's just like, he's something else. And towards the end, when, everybody's stalking each other, I'm just like, I think I need to see him get his head blown off. Otherwise, I'm not going to, how am I going to deal with his character, like being out there? The fact that he's just so evil, but couches it in that, that new age speak.
Yeah.
And
you reminded me of was the like a better acted version of the villain in Human Centipede.
Yeah. Could you see him in a remake of the Human Centipede?
He'd be more effective than Tom Six.
Oh God. Now I want to see that movie. The townsfolk in this, it's
a few of them there are.
Yeah, it's a tiny little, 3 people probably live there on the premises, and
it's the off season. They're built and they're a resort, and Martin Kasakis and Jessica Henwick, they're there to actually do plans for a new resort for Dan Stevens, which explains why they're there. But they'd been there years earlier. Is what we learn, and that's when that's when Jessica Henwick apparently was also attacked at some point.
Yeah, but got pregnant on that trip, and that's when they decided, he has talked to them over the last 8 years about coming back to build a new resort, ostensibly to build a new resort, when he just wants to see what happened to her baby. It's hard to like give away anything else because I want people to see it and just kind of go in. I didn't know anything except the trailer was great. The trailer gave nothing away when I saw this movie. It was just like, that's, again, I've said this before, that's the kind of trailer I like.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't give anything away from the actual movie. And this one did not.
Very true. Very true. Hunter Schafer is incredible. It's just a movie star actor.
Yeah.
Is going to be talked about for years. They're brilliant.
Agreed. And I hope she gets more stuff like this, where she does, a little offbeat, a little like I want to see her in some A24 shit. Her and Florence Pugh and God, I just want to call her Maxine because Mia Goth. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why and I just watched Maxine again. I want to see them and stuff, like they're three of the best out there working today. So
very true. Hunter Schafer also incredible, is the only really great performance in the Hunger Games movie too.
Yep. Literally the only good part.
She can do anything apparently.
Yeah. So I want to see her in more stuff. I want to see. I'll care a little bit more about Dan Stevens from now on because of this. Again, he's just, to me, as everybody's like, oh my God, Dan Stevens. I never watched Downton Abbey, so I didn't,
No,
I wasn't early on the Dan Stevens train. So.
Yeah, so there that is. I think Cuckoo is easily the best movie of the week for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yet another horror home run. And
I'm telling you.
I mean, Neon. Give it up for fucking Neon. They're killing it. The last 2 years, they've actually caught up to A24 and are putting out almost like it's neck and neck at this point. By the end of this year, Neon may put out more good movies than A24 in a single year. And that's a shocking statement for this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, they complement each other really well. They're not, I don't think that Neon is necessarily trying to be A24, but I think they're getting those scripts that, some of those scripts before A24 even sees them. I could still, in my head, I can see A24's Long Legs. I can see A24's Cuckoo, but I'm glad Neon got them because they ran away with them. And this year they're just like, they're batting 1,000 so far.
The key is that letting writers and directors, do their thing, do what they do, make the movies that they want.
Yeah.
And, sometimes you pull the reins, you pull them back a little bit and you keep them from going full Shyamalan and you get great movies.
I mean, yeah, that's the only kind of misstep in horror this year that I can think of off the top of my head. That Night Swim. Fucking, that's going to be on my top 10 worst. I guarantee it. God, I fucking hated that movie.
Death Pool.
Yeah. Would have been funnier. I don't know. Can you see Ryan Reynolds sitting off to the side going, ooh, that water is really going to get you.
How do you miss out on the chance to call your movie Death Pool? I mean, with Deathbed in the world, with Deadpool in the world, you can at least confuse a few people into buying a ticket.
Right. I mean, Deathpool movies coming out. Yeah, sure is.
That's good. That's the best thing about that movie is that they missed out on the chance to call it Death.
Agreed. And Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's son, Wyatt, whatever his name is, Wyatt Russell. I keep wanting to call him Wyatt. Or
there's this great bit that speaking of Deathbed, I just mentioned, and it always makes me think. I talked about this on the 94 podcast too, but I want to talk about it with you. He has this bit about Deathbed where he's putting himself in the mindset of the screenwriter. Somebody sat down and wrote Deathbed, and there are like two ways this could have gone. Like one, they struggled with Deathbed, just writing it over and over again, banging their head against the keys, trying to get it right. Or they just sat down and wrote it, and it all came out, just flowed out of them like God was speaking through their fingers. And it's just hilarious to think of the guy who wrote Deathbed.
Yeah, I don't know who
Just the same, it's kind of funny to think of the guy who wrote Night Swim. Like, that guy exists in the world with us right now.
As a short, it works.
Yeah.
As a full-length movie, it's like Lights Out. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
Best short and scariest short I've ever seen in my entire life was the Lights Out short. Scared me every time I watched it. The full-length movie, somebody gave it to me, and I watched it I had watched it in the theater, and I'm like, I took it to Walmart for credit.
Wow.
And I bought like pop or something with it.
All right, it's time to get into our classic. This is a weird one, but I just happened across a poster for this, and I saw a video on YouTube that I liked that happened to talk about this movie, and it's called Forbidden Zone. It came out in 1980. It was really big in LA at the time in 1980 because the band Oingo Boingo was big, or the Mystic Knights of Oingo Boingo, as they were called in the 70s and 80s. Danny Elfman, his family, put together that band, and they put together this movie, this very bizarre Warhol crossed with John Waters, Rocky Horror movie. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Hundreds of Beavers as well, as a similar kind of inspiration, I think. And People's Joker certainly has the same spirit as this movie. There's a portal to another dimension in the basement of this house that's owned by the Hercules family. Frenchie Hercules, the daughter, decides to go there and goes into this forbidden zone and encounters the king, Fausto, played by Hervé Villechaize, and the queen, Doris, played by Susan Tyrrell, in just the highest of high camp performances.
Susan Tyrrell, if you've ever seen Butcher, Baker, Nightmare Maker.
No.
She is like camp. If you look up camp in a dictionary, it's just a picture of her going from that movie. This, I had never seen this or heard of it until this week, and this blows that camp out of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just, there's no real, like, it's not really a plot to it.
No, not really.
And I read up on it as I was watching a little bit, and it's basically a stage show that they used to do, the Elfman family. And, you know, they would get these casts of characters. Martin Van Hasselberg, Bette Midler's husband, who's a composer, but, you know, they met when he was working for her after doing this movie as a female twin with his nose, like, strapped to his face. You know, it's just, all these people that are in this movie. Viva from the Andy Warhol movies plays the ex-queen.
Yeah.
And she and Susan Tyrrell have a cat fight that is, quite honestly, one of the funniest, most awesome things I've ever seen in my entire life. But they used to do this stuff on stage, and the whole 6th dimension portal was an afterthought because they needed to tie all this together. Like, how we're doing all these little vignettes. How do we tie that together? She goes through the portal and goes into the forbidden zone. And yeah, it works.
It does. It's weird. It's wild. It's crazy. It's utter fucking nonsense, but it is incredibly watchable nonsense.
And I watched it on Tubi.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember what commercials they were, but they were, some of the commercials they inserted felt like they belonged in the movie. They were just so dumb. I was like, wait, oh no, this is a commercial. Okay.
There is a great moment that I was lucky to have where the former queen, she's just been rescued from her cage by a couple of members of the Hercules family who are just indescribable human beings. And she says, okay, excuse me, I gotta go change my tampon. And then it goes to commercial, and I was just dying.
She does drop the word faggot a few times, too many for my liking.
Yeah.
But I love Viva. Viva is, you know, Gabby Hoffman, the actress. That's her mom. Yeah. And the fact that she's just, her whole, like, after Warhol was just like, oh, we did all this shit and I don't give a shit anymore. And that comes across, like, her not giving a shit about anything comes across in this because of her line delivery or lack thereof.
The way she says the tampon line is just like, just completely tossed off.
But it works in this movie.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that, like, that didn't work for me. And that's just because he did it again. Every Oingo Boingo music video was Danny Elfman playing Satan. And I'm like, oh, that's just Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
You know, this was a pleasant surprise when you said it what it was, and we only talked about it. We never wrote it down. So I forgot about it until yesterday. I was like, if I have to rent a stupid fucking movie for $5 that's going to, like, piss me off, I'm going to be really, and then I saw it was on Tubi. I'm like, okay, I'm okay. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. And I started watching this and I was like, oh, I kind of want to make a Susan Tyrrell sticker. I just think she is, When I saw that she was in this movie, I'm like, I cannot wait to watch this movie because she's just. We have to make Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker a classic sometime because it's so fucked up.
Yeah.
But she is just. There's something about her, like one of my favorite underground actresses, and she brings it every ounce of it to this movie.
The production design is wild.
Did you hear did you read what they did?
No.
They shot it in black and white. And the original plan was to ship it to Paris and have it hand tinted. But he thought, oh no, that's, we'll just make it black and white because that's much too labor intensive and much too expensive. So when they did the restoration, I think in 2018, they digitally colored it.
Oh.
So that's why it's like a weird saturation to all the colors.
But it's perfect.
It's like absolutely perfect. It's so, it looks so good. It
still looks period appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a cross between an 80s underground movie and a 50s sci-fi movie with Hervé Villechaize from Fantasy Island, being some sort of weird sex symbol. And they actually got him because he was in a relationship with Susan Tyrrell at the time. That's how they got him to be in this movie. They cast her, and then they talked.
Funny story. He was also on a break from the later seasons of
Fantasy Island
because he was in a contract dispute, and they were trying to replace him.
Yep.
They were replacing him with a female character who was just a complete. One actress lost the job. They did hire an actress. She did hang around for a season. One actress lost the job. This is a fun story, and we're going to drift off here for a moment. She got the job as the new Tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was fired because they found out that she had recommended a psychic to the head of the network at ABC. And that network executive was so impressed with the psychic that he started running all of the scripts and all of the pilots past this psychic. And it worked for like a full season. This psychic actually picked like Happy Days and Mork and Mindy, and like they're just getting hit after hit. But then they found out that he was consulting a psychic. Like they said, no, you're fired. You consulted a psychic.
Nancy
and when
Reagan
they found
did it.
out this woman had been the one who introduced them, they fired her from Fantasy Island.
Wow. Don't you think they would have just put the psychic on the payroll?
Right. Apparently she stopped hitting after the second year.
Oh, okay.
And they fired him when they found out, though. Like literally, and then also the ratings had slipped. They'd fallen behind CBS. So,
well, Tattoo was a big part of that movie or that show. So,
yeah. Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
The ratings went down during the time he wasn't there, and they went back up when he came back. Yeah. So he was right. He deserved more money.
Hervé Villechaize was a fucking star. He was like going to Studio 54 and, like banging Susan Tyrrell.
Yeah. He was also just not getting paid at all to do that job where he was the, seemingly as much of a draw as Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah. I mean,
it's one of those rare moments where he can literally point at the numbers and go, I'm not there. The numbers are bad. You better bring me back.
When you think of Fantasy Island, what do you think of?
Tattoo. The plane.
The plane. Yeah. I mean, that goes without saying, I don't know. They never want to give short actors their due. Look at Gary Coleman and
yeah. Well, the poor guy didn't even have somebody to stand in for him.
No,
he was literally his own stand-in.
Yeah.
For the first couple of seasons.
Who are they going to get? Carol Struycken, who played Lurch.
I mean, they literally had there are literally dwarf actors in Hollywood that they could have
I know, I know. But it's a disrespect kind of thing.
It was just cruel. But yeah, it was fascinating. The second I saw him and the second I saw Susan Tyrrell, I'm like, how has no one talked about this movie in 45 years?
Yeah. I feel like I heard about it, but not heard about it.
Yeah.
Like somewhere off in the ether or something, I heard, the Forbidden Zone that didn't have anything to do with Adamant.
Right.
So
it's weird to think that when we were listening to Weird Science or that song from Back to School, when we're finding out about Oingo Boingo and they're getting some mainstream attention. We had no idea that this was their backstory. that they were doing this. This is how they became popular in Los Angeles, was making a movie like this and doing these stage shows that were just apparently even crazier than this movie.
Yeah, this is it's on Tubi. You don't have to pay to watch it. It's great. Go watch it. I think it's kind of like a little obsession for me. I thought about it all day today at work. Yeah. I was like, oh, that movie was just...
It also kind of reminded me of your style of art, too. Like, this is I thought for sure, the second you saw Susan Tyrrell, I thought...
Yeah, my aesthetic. And there's a drag queen, Manila Luzon, who now I have to go back and watch her early seasons on RuPaul's Drag Race because she always has a white streak in her hair. And there is definitely... there's no way that after I saw Susan Tyrrell's costume in this movie, I have somewhere seen Manila Luzon dressed as her. So I got to go back and watch her seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race because that's too on the nose.
I gotta say, this movie is not for basic bitches. This is not This is not an easy movie. There's no plot. You have to invest yourself in the weirdness to really like take this movie in and enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're looking for if you're somebody who has to have like a traditional narrative, this is not your movie. Stay away.
This is a Warhol movie directed by Brandon Cronenberg with an assist from David Cronenberg. I mean, it's so weird. It's just fucking weird.
To the point where Joe Spinell's in it.
Oh, like not for long, kind of blinking and miss him, but Joe Spinell, Susan Tyrrell, Viva, Hervé Villechaize, it's Danny Elfman. I wonder if him and Bridget Fonda watched this movie at home, and just be like, oh, let's watch it again. Come on. And there's like towards the end of the movie, it's only an hour and 14 minutes.
It's very short. Goes by very quickly.
But there's a good 5 minutes where Susan Tyrrell is just standing there with her titty out.
Random scenes where her breast is just out.
And she's laying down on Hervé Villechaize, like he's stroking her nipples and he's talking about how much he loves her nipples. And I'm just like, no, boss, deplane. It was going through my head. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, there's no doubt. If the internet had been around then, he's fired from Fantasy Island. He's gone from mainstream television for this. Because they bang in this movie.
Oh, he's like the king of the universe, the kind of thing that everybody wants to bang him. Go watch this immediately.
He's also not delivering any kind of performance. Like there's no performance. He's just him.
The only two people who are truly invested and like really want to do it are the lead Frenchie, what's their last name?
Hercules.
And Susan Tyrrell as the queen. Those are the only two who are like, let's perform.
Yeah.
Everybody else is kind of doing their, like their shtick. But those two really are trying to do something and it shows. So, yeah. And I love the fact that like they use, she sings a song and it's actually, she's just lip syncing to Josephine Baker. The dad at the table starts singing a song at the beginning, and it's Cab Calloway. Mm-hmm. They're just lip syncing to Cab Calloway. I'm like, what the fuck?
The movie also opens with a clown pimp who buys the house and then immediately leaves after he finds the forbidden zone in the basement.
Yeah,
he's like a heroin dealer. Like, what is this detail and why is this here? And I don't care. I love it.
The classroom scenes with the teacher who's in drag. I'm like, and then the one character, oh God, what's his name? He's the gay one in the show, and they pull him up and he has to like sing and recite stuff in his underwear. Yeah. And later on he jumps into the cage where Viva was with all the horny like whoever they were. It's like, yes, do me now. And then that's the last you see of him. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, this
the two like
everything.
Hercules, like the Hercules Gramp. They were both called Gramps
Yeah.
at certain different points. I didn't know which one. She also goes to school with one who's the older one.
Yeah.
So I was very confused. He's walking around in a diaper, I think, for most of the movie, but he also just humps every woman that he sees.
Yeah.
Just automatically starts humping them.
Oh, it's
There's a guy with a frog head walking around.
yeah.
Squeeze It.
Yeah.
Is a character in this movie.
Yeah, and the froghead is like apparently doing Susan Tyrrell's bidding at all times.
I also have a princess daughter, Tyrell and Hervé have a princess who's always topless.
Yeah.
So much casual boobs in this movie.
I implore you, when you turn this off, go to Tubi, watch this movie. It
seemed like the kind of movie that should have been lost for like 40 years and then somebody like found it and put it back out.
I mean, it kind of was. When they remastered it in 2018, that was,
fair. Yeah.
That was 30 some years. So, but I can't believe it's not a bigger thing, especially with my friends who are into, this cult shit.
Yeah.
Like cult movies. And
when you look at the modern success of, like I said, Hundreds of Beavers or The People's Joker, this is one of those kind of DIY efforts.
Oh yeah.
That is the cardboard sets and
literal cardboard sets.
That you would think like this is a movie that's been influential to people. And I don't know if it is. I don't know if anybody would claim this as an influence, but it should be.
Also, great animation.
Yeah.
Like the very beginning of it with the house and the dice over the credits. it's really, really awesome.
It's ambitious. It's specific. It's super fucking weird.
Yeah.
And again, like Warhol and like the influence of him and the influence of Roger Waters, like it's all there.
It's like they took the cast of SCTV, not Saturday Night Live, SCTV, fed them copious amounts of LSD, and ran their hallucinations on film.
Yeah.
And directed by Andy Warhol and John Waters.
Yeah, I can see that.
So
that is definitely a great way to explore this movie. that mindset.
I kind of want to try LSD while I watch this movie.
That would be a good experience, I imagine. Next week, we're talking about Alien Romulus, the latest in the Alien franchise. The first time they've gone back to, I guess, the original premise after doing whatever they did with Michael Fassbender.
Well, this takes place between Alien and Aliens.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I'm not particularly excited about it, but, I'm sure there are other people who we know.
Well, yeah. And I think we're going to try to have Josh on.
That'd be nice.
To talk about it because this is his favorite franchise.
We've done a full Alien retrospective on the show, so I'm not necessarily interested in doing that again. But we will have Alien Romulus, and Josh will hopefully be able to join us and for that one, and we'll also talk about the new movie Skincare with Elizabeth Banks, which is due from IFC and somehow getting a theatrical release this weekend.
Yeah.